I am gonna be that guy to start because we should all take these with a pinch of salt. Wrestling has a funny way of making life go crazy. But the reports are out there, so we may as well investigate because, yeah, sometimes stories we introduce into our fun grappling world fall into reality and it all goes nuts. Crossing the streams, raining cats and dogs, me growing my hair. Not that last one, but let's go. Number 10, the John Cena and Mickie James relationship. WWE in 2008 was a bit much. Even though they were about to go PG, they would still try and push the envelope or be a little bit risque. Hence why on an episode of Raw, John Cena handed a thong to Mickie James and said she left something behind last night. Let's just imagine they were playing dress up. In reality, it was another romantic storyline which Vince McMahon was always keen to do, especially with his top star. Back in the day, he even wanted Steve Austin and Sable to hook up, when Stone Cold decided that would be too out of character for someone who was meant to be a hellraiser. It's always hard in sports entertainment for one reason or another, which is why Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch didn't much enjoy it years later, and they were actually married. The world of wrestling just has its own rules. The Cena James story also petered out on screen for the same reasons when controversy hit. In 2012, former Mickie James' fiancé and former WWE employee Kenny Dykstra claimed life was imitating art because these two started dating for real. James briefly mentioned it on Lillian Garcia's podcast in 2017 too, so let's just leave it there. Sometimes it is better that personal lives remain personal. Number 9, CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy. This feud was great. Fueled once again by what we knew of each individual in their non-wrestling life, we pitched Jeff Hardy as the troubled WWE champion who was finally getting his own issues sorted. It was a very inspiring thing to see happen, specifically because Hardy had such a strong connection with the fans. It all worked. At the same time, CM Punk had embraced his holier-than-thou persona where he felt he knew best, so he went after Hardy. During one promo, he even said, "I know you know a thing or two about prescription medication." I mean, you can only take that one way. The real sad part is after Punk had defeated Jeff, he fell right back into legal trouble due to the above, which also led to a very unfortunate video. Hardy, who didn't seem all too well, took a shot at CM and called him a nerd, and then he told him to flub off. I hope these days they're all back on the same page, and while I do sound like a Care Bear, I just want everyone to be the best of friends. Or they could just be civil to each other. That's fine too. Number 8, Mr. McMahon's mock funeral. I stopped watching wrestling at this point in 2007. It was all just a bit too much. It was bad enough that on the 11th of June Raw, Vince McMahon had exploded his character on TV when a limo bomb went off, but a week later they were actually going to do the funeral. Who on earth wanted to see that? Wrestling is meant to be an escape. The best story of all of it is the long-touted rumor that one Donald Trump thought this was real, so rang WWE HQ to check. The worst part was just around the corner. Before this wake could air, the news about Chris Benoit was discovered. Absolutely one of the worst things that has ever happened in wrestling. The murder-suicide of wife Nancy and son Daniel never gets any easier and remains a very difficult talking point today. It still doesn't feel real. Obviously, it meant the scripted funeral was cancelled, and thank goodness for that. It would have been the ultimate in bad taste. We did get the Benoit tribute show instead, which soon turned out to be a disaster as well. This was just not a good time for anyone. It's another reason why we should always remember the victims. Nothing is more important than that. Number 7, Shawn Michaels' smile. Because yeah, in 1997, Shawn Michaels went and lost it. This infamous line from his promo was meant to identify that he wasn't really happy in the WWF anymore, especially as his World Championship run hadn't gone to plan, and he didn't really want to drop it to Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. He didn't like any of it. HBK also said he had a serious knee injury, which has to be said was contested by a lot of people, including in Bret's own book. Many of Michaels' other detractors also decided this was a ruse so he wouldn't have to do business. The truth is, we'll never know. Shawn even told Vince McMahon in the ring he wasn't sure if he could ever return, which was actually the second time this had happened. The first was in 1995, and that one was pure storyline, but still, there was a theme here. That's why when 1998 rolled around and the Heartbreak Kid's back most definitely went, well, it was almost spooky. Happening at the Royal Rumble when The Undertaker threw him onto a casket, the injury was so bad that after dropping the world title to Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13, Shawn took a leave of absence, and this time, yeah, every medical professional said he was done. It was crazy. What's even more mad is that people here thought the dead man had accidentally retired Michaels, when 12 years later he did do that for real during their retirement match at WrestleMania. But just accept that one, otherwise it will hurt your head. 6, McMahon plays with fire. While the Bret Hart-Shawn Michaels rivalry was meant to be for TV only, it was not. We all know this. Behind the scenes, they hated each other. Now, every promoter seemed to enjoy this back in the day because, as Jerry Jarrett once said, personal issues draw money. Therefore, if this could have an essence of legitimacy, surely that would make it even better. Vince McMahon certainly bought into this, and sort of played both men off against the other one, even away from the cameras, especially because they represented something so different. Hart wanted to be the old school hero, and Michaels thought that idea was old and passé. They clashed heads all the time. It did work as the TV between them was incredible to watch, but surprise, surprise, it went too far. Just as the storyline between them was getting heated, they started to drop real unplanned bombs into their promos, which led to a huge fight backstage. It got so violent, Brent pulled a clump of hair out of Shawn's head as HBK stormed into Vince's office and told him he'd quit. This wasn't great for anyone. It all led to the Montreal Screwjob 2, and yeah, let's not take things this far. It was way too much. Number 5, CM Punk leaves, and I think he meant it too. CM Punk was definitely burnt out in 2012, and as his contract was coming due, why not leave WWE and have a break? All that led to the now infamous pipe bomb promo, and because he was shooting from the hip, so much of it was easy to buy into. I mean, all the info was there too. Punk's deal was up, that was legit. It meant CM Punk could also air his criticism for real, which made him a hero to a big portion of the fan base, as it proved somebody within the company shared their frustrations. It was almost like a big green light to feel this way. Of course, all of it led to Punk and then on-screen COO Triple H getting into it with their promos, and honestly, you should go and watch these. They just tell each other exactly how they felt about the other, and no way this wasn't from the heart. You could see it in their eyes. As it turned out, they were not the best of friends, as both have talked about since. So when we got to WrestleMania and a match was booked between the two, Punk wanted none of it. Just felt like he was being marginalized again. All of this was very ironic because when we booked Punk to leave the promotion in 2011, he did so with Triple H watching on, and in 2014 when he did leave for real, it was while the game was looking at him from Vince McMahon's office. The best part today is they're two totally different people. That just goes to show all of us can evolve. Number 4, the Chris Benoit-Nancy Sullivan relationship. This one is hard to talk about for reasons we've already gone over, but it's also a rule that any wrestler will tell you about the industry. Don't book your own wife or partner in a storyline with another wrestler. That's basically the same for all of entertainment because you're running the risk of charismatic, attractive people spending a lot of time together. What could possibly go wrong? We go way back when for this one, when Kevin Sullivan was booking WCW, and he must have had a bit more confidence. He was indeed married to Nancy, but hey, he was feuding with Chris Benoit on TV, so why not book an affair angle? This all sounds fine. It did seem pointless, as in 1996 everybody knew that wrestling was predetermined, so if anything, the best you were gonna get is someone assuming this was all being done for the show anyway. As I'm sure you can figure out, they did fall in love, leaving Kevin to rue the day he ever decided to do this. Obviously, what was going to happen down the line made this even worse. Let's move on. Number 3, Randy Savage's jealousy, which ties directly into this one. Confirmed by many a wrestler, Randy Savage was not the most trusting dude. When it came to wife Elizabeth, he was worried all the time and took things way too far. Go and watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode. This is bad, bad stuff. It's almost sad to hear as Randy and Miss Elizabeth were so genuine on screen, which is why the WWF booked an angle where the mega powers of Macho and Hulk Hogan would break up, due to the former deciding the latter was after his wife. Again, it's the most soap opera thing ever. It led to the iconic line, "I see lust in your eyes, Hulk Hogan," and when they did implode, we got to the main event of WrestleMania 5. Just for your trivia brain, it was the most ordered pay-per-view by the company for the next 9 years, so it worked. The story was then left, but a few years later, this became the real deal, because after Savage and Liz had fallen out, the Hulkster supported her, and man, Randy did not like that. It got so bad the couple split properly in 1992, and while Hulk has always claimed he didn't do anything, Savage clearly saw it differently, which is exactly what had happened in 1988. Number 2, Austin vs. McMahon. Is this the best heel versus face WWE story ever? Probably. It kicked off and led the Attitude Era for years and was quite incredible to watch. When it was at its peak, Austin kept getting more and more love, whereas McMahon got more and more hated. Everybody must have been over the moon. This was all fiction, which is why Stone Cold once pretended he was going to kill Vince with a toy gun when we got to 2002. I suppose with all the success and working so closely, it was always going to be a difficult situation. But as soon as McMahon and Austin saw things differently, boy did it go bad. Steve thought the best place to air his grievances was on the Sort of Real Bite This show, so he said it to the public. He thought the stories were kinda crappy right now, and his character was not being treated right. Ruh-roh. It's always been said that this was the reason Austin was booked to randomly lose to Brock Lesnar on that random episode of Raw. We all know what happened next. Steve didn't turn up to work and left for almost a year. McMahon then started a smear campaign on TV, which was crazy who was given involved here, but yeah. Was it totally different to some of the stories we had done back in the late 90s? Not really. There were a lot less stunners though. Number 1, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon fall in love. So I don't care about all the other nonsense that has been thrown their way. This is a nice one, kinda. And nice is nice. But during the late 90s, Triple H did indeed wed Stephanie McMahon on TV. The less said about the original wedding, the better, although it is okay in the end. While at first it seemed like Hunter had drugged her to do this, we soon learned it was all a ruse and the McMahon-Helmsley era was born. They ran amok. It moved both of them into the main event scene, but you already know the deal. It didn't end there as they fell in love for real and are still together today. That's like 25 years. There is some sadness because it always sounded like Chyna got caught up on this as she was dating Triple H at the time, and I have always hoped that it all happened after the fact. Doesn't sound like the case, and that sucks. Nobody should ever have to go through that. It's just a horrible thing to experience, but again, this is personal stuff for personal people. Still, in 2003, Triple H and Stephanie did get married in the real world, and the rest, as they say, is history. Know of any other times where real life and storylines got all muddled in the middle? Make sure you drop me a comment below before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Why not click that damn video on the screen? Otherwise though, just please make sure you have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for listening to me, my friends. Makes me feel good. Hope you feel good too, which is weird. I'll speak to you soon.